The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. George Orwell, 1984. Hello, everybody. This is William del Pilar, and this is Fired Up. It's been a little while. Well, not really. Actually, this is the first show I've had on schedule in a while. I just finished doing a Fired Up last week talking about the Libertarian uh, National Conference and how the Libertarian vote is Donald Trump's to lose. If you haven't seen that one, check it out. But this week, we are going to talk about Dementia Joe and his dementia ridden self worsening. For those of you who want to attack me, oh, how dare you, William? How dare you? He's a man, he's suffering. No, screw him. I work that industry. What's happening to Dementia Joe is a disgrace that is being brought on by Jill Biden and associates. Jill Biden, who did everything, including sell her soul to the devil in order to become first lady. So we're going to talk a little bit about Joe Biden's worsening mental condition, his deterioration. We're also going to talk about voter fraud. When I first started this venture with Big John T. Georgopoulos, there were a couple of things I wouldn't talk about. One of them was the 2020 election because there was voter fraud. It was clear as day. Any moron could see it. Somebody who has been raised in a third world country as an American citizen, I saw voter fraud every election cycle with the Panamanian government. The signs were clearly there, but because the courts didn't want to hear it, the mainstream media was against it. Laws that were broken were not being talked about. Case in point, in Pennsylvania, the legislature breaking the Constitution, the state Constitution. And I'm going to end that segment with Andy Biggs and how the Maricopa County Office of Registers deleted archived data that they did not want to be seen. Voter fraud is here, and I want to show you examples of it so you know not what to look for, but to show you the proof of it. And finally, a small tale got no national play, but the Biden regime is opening doors for terrorists. They are making it easier for terrorists to come to this country and take apart our airports. And we're going to talk about that. First of all, first of all, as I said, first of all, I was thinking, how many people with that opening are going to think, man, what a conspiracy theorist? No, not at all. The truth of the matter is, I will back up all this data very well. But I don't forsake talking about these tough subjects, these subjects that we need to talk about. You can find this podcast, Fired Up, as well as our other political podcasts about libertarianism and everything along with that. That's the Free for All podcast. You can find that and our sports podcast. Excuse me, our sports podcast at grumblingsmedia.com. You can find us on various social media platforms such as Rumble, YouTube, traditional podcast outlets, Apple, Google, Pandora, Spotify. And we are under the profile Grumblings Media. All righty, my friends. Let us get down to it. First topic at hand is going to be Dementia Joe's mental faculties worsening. And let me repeat what I said to start the show. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. And obviously, that is from George Orwell's 1984. And it's a quote that describes, for those of you not aware, and there's a lot of people out there who have heard of a 1984 but never read the book. It's about a dystopian society where the ruling party controls every aspect of citizen lives. Excuse me, let me get comfortable here. The ruling party controls every aspect of citizen lives, including thoughts and beliefs. And the party wants the citizens to believe its version of reality, even if it contradicts their own senses. And this quote illustrates the power of propaganda and the manipulation of truth in a totalitarian regime. And that's kind of what we've been living since the turn of the century. And the reason I brought that quote up is right now the mainstream media is saying that there's videos out there edited all up to show Dementia Joe as having dementia. Well, he does have dementia. Look, I worked in that industry from, oh gosh, 1990 maybe to 95 to 2000. I worked in that industry for a while. I worked on the side of fundraising, and it was the Alzheimer's Association. The San Diego chapter did a lot of great things with fundraising, put a lot of plans into place with my boss. She led all that, and I was her right hand man. In fact, some of the programs she created that I helped her helped her create, was they were picked up by National. I don't know if they're still being done. One of them was Memory Mums. The other one was a painting program, because dementia patients seem to do well with that. So we did a lot of things there, and I saw a lot of individuals with dementia, and you innately start to recognize telltale factors of somebody who has Alzheimer's, who has dementia. So people like us, and that includes tens of millions of Americans who've had to deal with it with their own loved ones. We can see Joe Biden, and we can see this dude ain't right. So take it with however you want, but it's easy to recognize somebody with dementia. So the fact that the mainstream media is telling you, no, don't believe your own eyes, that is very Orwellian, and we've been living in Orwellian world with the media since the 2000 election. Let me show you one of the cases of where uh, Biden freezes. And here's what I'm going to say about this. The naysayers, yeah, you got a point. He could have just been paused. But for those of us who have seen it, it's a recognizable stance, a pose, the look. We've seen that before. Let me grab it here for you. Let's see. Present. Here we go. Let me find this. Oh, fired up. There we go. I'm not thinking, what show is this? What show? I do 2 to 3 shows. Yeah. Right there. Right there. So you saw the pose. Now, for those who say, well, he was just standing there taking the adulation, true, he may have. If that's the case, and I'm the Biden camp, I'm jumping all over Obama. Because Obama went over there to take an old geezer's hand, like, you need help, old man. Come on, follow me. Okay. And the way he was shuffling, the way he was walking, telltale signs. That's not debatable in terms of those being telltale signs of somebody with dementia. Anybody who has taken care of somebody, or who has dealt with somebody with dementia, will say, yeah, William's absolutely correct, as are other people. But in your defense, maybe he was just standing there. The point is, this video has been circulating, and what the mainstream media is kind of trying to tell you is, don't believe any of this. And what you were looking at was a re-election campaign, a fundraiser with Jimmy Kimmel and Barack Obama, and they both pushed back on those claims. But what else could they say? Oh yeah, you're right there, buddy. Yeah, you caught us, man. That's Dementia Joe. Yeah. Joe. Obama said Joe. He'll F anything up, which is true. They were never really friends. On the surface, they were amicable, but you never saw them as buds. It was always a front. Obama did not like Joe Biden, and I don't think Joe Biden cared for Obama. Joe Biden was the compromise of the donor masters, Obama's masters, in the sense of who they had in their back pocket in case Obama faltered. For people who say Obama's pulling chains, no, he's not. The guy's he's a marijuana smoking guy. He was handpicked. He's nobody's master. He answers the masters, and it's no different than any other politician, whether it's Bush, Clinton, Gore, any one of those. Obama's no different. They try to make him different because it's easy to create a straw man. So, as I said, the video shows Biden pausing amid cheers and applauses, and then Obama has to come and grab him. And Biden paused for 10 seconds, and he didn't look lost, but he had that dementia look. And it's the most recent of many clips of him that, to me, shows him unfit for office. Let's take a look at a few more. This one is of him forgetting he already shook somebody's hand.
Now our great speaker, our partner, who all of these bills we've met.
Now I want you to take a quick look at it again. Right at the beginning, he shakes Schumer's hand, plugs Schumer's hands. Then he looks lost because it went kind of quick. You may have missed the very first seconds, but check out the first few seconds.
Now our great.
It's obvious. He forgot in that moment he has shaken Schumer's hands. This is becoming an everyday occurrence. They're hiding him more and more. The guy ran from the basement in 2020 because of COVID, but mostly because they wanted to hide his dementia. Now it's impossible to hide it. You can actually formulaically plan somebody's day with dementia to minimize the dementia. It's something called a sundowner effect. The longer you're awake, the longer you go throughout the day, the more apparent your dementia becomes, and it's harder to hide. So they can plan around that, but it's getting to the point now you just can't. I mean, here's one where he's just struggling to talk.
Members of Congress and Homeland Security Secretary, I'm not sure going to do Security Secretary, I'm not sure going to do Congress and Homeland Security Secretary, I'm not sure going to do
I've seen this with individuals with dementia. I didn't pull it to show, but there's one where he goes, "Wipe my butt" or something like that. He just says it, and nobody in the media bothered to question him. That's a telltale sign of dementia. You just blurt something unprofessional or impolite out. It's very common amongst dementia patients. But that's who Joe Biden is right now. And the fact that the media is telling you that these are edited, no, they're not. Sure, maybe. Now, the one that is edited, they clipped, was the one where he went to give the thumbs up to the paratrooper. But even then, he's kind of like wandering and sees a paratrooper. Ooh, ooh, yeah, he's able to get away with it. But if he had his mental faculties, he would have stayed with the group. Here's one where people, it's terrible, but yes, his stance, not the one where he's looking for a chair, but the way he stands, it's like a grown man, an adult that we've all seen, those who have lost their control. And the thing about dementia is that what people don't understand, they think it affects just your mind. No, it affects you physically. It will put you in the pens faster than any other person who is just a regular healthy man that age. And so when people said this, and they may have been mocking it, but there's some truth to it. I'm not laughing at Joe there. I'm laughing at Jill, like, oh dear God, oh dear God. And she walks away. She abandons her husband in that moment. That's too funny. But I don't know if he was taking a dump, but the fact that everybody thinks he's so dementia riddled, that does not help. So he can be his own worst enemy, even if he isn't crapping his pants. But for those of you right now who think, oh, well, you're just talking a lot of BS, you're talking a lot of this, a lot of that. Look, you can tell how somebody who has dementia too by the way they look compared to what they previously looked. It's something you learn innately. You can tell by the way they talk. It's something, again, it's innately. When you're around these individuals, you may not know the scientific terms. A lot of these things have scientific terms. You just know it because you see it every day. And my final take on this, in regards to the videos I want to show you, is Joe Biden in 2019 versus today. Check this one out.
You have to right the market a little bit here. And the market is that if you have all of the tax breaks, essentially all the tax breaks, all of the benefits flowing to the top 0.1%, there's never been as great a concentration of wealth, including going back to the Great Depression, right? Ever. And so one.
Look at how he looks there. He looks dazed, confused, and lost. And look at how he looked in the beginning when he was talking, with a firm grasp of what he wanted to say, or rather what he was saying. So take, so let's check it out.
Most about that, John, it's not just a. You have to right the market a little bit here. And the market is that if you have.
I mean, right there, he looks with it. 2019, he's still with it. At that point, he was probably suffering some memory loss, kind of like, where's my keys at type memory loss. But he was speaking with command of the dialogue there. And then look at him just standing here. This is one of those traits that you can tell over time, because it happens to everybody with dementia.
Of all of the tax breaks, essentially all the tax breaks, all of
His
the
hands, look at his hand.
top 0.1%. There's never been as great a concentration of wealth.
I mean, he's just lost, and the fact that we are the greatest country since the dawn of civilization. Don't tell the ancient alien believers, but since the dawn of civilization, and this is what we're allowing in our leadership. 81 million people did not vote for Biden. We all know that. The only people who openly lie about that are TDSers. It's just it's terrible. It's terrible. And again, I brought up the Orwell quote because the mainstream media is telling you that we're lying, that we are lying. It's so why the concern? Well, I'll tell you why the concern. It's Oh, I did not pop any of these photos up. I'll do that as I talk. But okay, I'm back. I paused the video there for a second because I wanted to find this image. The reason they're having a cow about this is because it's getting worse, and the public is no longer buying the lies from the media. Joe Biden is 81 years old, and we all know now he doesn't have this necessary mental and physical health to be president for a second term. But the Democrats are kind of stuck. I mean, there's a process to finding another candidate, and there's just not enough time. So a poll was done, and 3/4 of the voters, including over 50% of them being Democrats, say they have concerns about his mental and physical health. And let me show you the poll. There's the poll right there. At 81 years old, Joe Biden not having the necessary mental and physical health to be president for a second term, 62%. The next one is the next category is moderate concerns. So that's a 76%. 2/3 of Americans polled have serious concerns, and that's why the media is freaking out. They don't like you to see that. They don't like you to know that. They want you to believe the lie that Joe Biden is as fit as a fiddle. I mean, there's videos out there of every Tom, Dick, and Harry saying, "Oh, he's behind the scenes, he's as fit as a fiddle. Behind the scenes, he's as fit as fit as a fiddle, sharp as a tack, sharp as a needle." I'm surprised, Doc, that Jill Biden hasn't come out and said, "Oh, he's as fit as a needle in the sack." Oh my goodness. Oh, how do I remove this? How do I remove this? Okay, here we go. Stop screen there. So his dementia is real. Is real. But here's the real kicker. When the media tries to deny this, and you have your friends who sit there and say, well, you might believe the media. Really? That's fine. What about the kiss of death? Special counsel Robert Hur's report. You know, it criticized Biden for not only willfully and wrongly keeping documents, it sat there and said that he was not mentally all there. It credits Biden for being cooperative, and I believe that that was all politics there because they were saying Trump wasn't cooperative. But the tone of those being investigated has nothing to do with the truth of what's right or wrong. The reasons they did not charge Biden, one was his long record of public service. I don't give a rat's tail. See, that's politics there. But most importantly was the report said his memory, quote, appeared to have significant limitations, unquote. Described him as a, quote, elderly man with a poor memory, unquote. He couldn't recall when he served as vice president. He struggled to recall when his dead son Bo died. I mean, that whole family's nothing but trash. You know, rest in peace, Bo. But they're all trash. And he couldn't recall when his son died. In fact, the quote, he did not remember even within several years when his son Bo died, unquote. Biden's memories appeared hazy. That's a word that was used when describing a debate about troop levels in Afghanistan when he was vice president. And he described one general he agreed with as a general he disagreed with. Now, this reminded me of Gene Wilder, a great actor from the 70s and 80s. Young Frankenstein was his love. He wrote it. Uh, the whole thing. It was his unicorn. It was his masterpiece. And his wife knew when Gene forgot that, she knew something's wrong. You know. And this Afghanistan issue with his general that that his mind couldn't remember, that he agreed with in stating that he disagreed with him, that was something he would not have forgotten. That's how important this whole Afghanistan issue. It was his comeback win. You know, Joe Biden is 40 years of literally one policy failure after another, and he wanted to get it right here in Afghanistan. And just like Bush, he failed. But he was bound and determined to show the to show Robert Hur that, hey, I still got it. So as proof of his fitness, he cited his major legislative and other wins. But yet, when he was doing that, he referred to Egypt's Abdel Fattah el-Sisi as the president of Mexico. I mean, even when he's trying to defend himself, he can't get it right. So despite his clear guilt, no charges were assessed. That's the politics of it all. Despite this damning assessment of Biden's mental state, the report did not recommend any charges against him. That made me furious. Her refusal to lay charges against Biden for improperly storing classified documents at not one, not two, but 3 locations. And let me tell you, he's not the president. So whether senator or VP, he has no access to these types of documents. How do I know that? I had classified clearance. I know how that whole process works. I remember trying to educate Big John, my partner, about that. I was like, John, I know how this works. You're not going to tell me, somebody who's never done this or handled it or been in that situation, how it works because you read an article. I lived it. I had to practice it. I saw people lose their rank because the NWPL library was compromised. That's the Naval Warfare Publications Library, where anything from confidential to top secret is there. And I was put in charge to correct the deficiencies where there have been lost publications. I know that world. So when Her refused to press any charges, I'm like, you're nothing but a coward. You're a coward. And his reasoning for this was, he wrote this down, was that Biden would likely present himself to a jury, quote, as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory, unquote. That's a lie. Biden is an arrogant SOB. And the problem with people with dementia is their real state of mind comes out. Their real feelings, meaning what they really think. They don't have the acumen. They don't have the ability to think before they speak, and they blurt out a lot of things they would normally not do if they were in control of their own faculties. Was this an order from Garland? I believe Garland gave him strict orders not to recommend prosecution and use Hur's GOP background to showcase Biden is innocent versus Trump's case. This isn't Hur's first time dancing at the ball. He's been in this position before. And again, the dirty secret is that Biden had no right to classified material. Trump did as POTUS. And I'm not saying what Trump did was correct. You know, my question is, why would anybody want classified material in their own personal possessions? Maybe in your library under the proper rules and protocols, but at your home, no. So it's not that I'm saying Trump did something illegal. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm just saying, you know, it's not like I'm defending Trump. I disagree with any president keeping this type of stuff at home, and all of them have. Trump was just the first one being charged. He did, and again, this isn't her first time to the dance. He did the same thing in choosing not to prosecute John Kerry after being told not to by Jeffrey Berman, the U.S. attorney who had handled the case prior to him. And he didn't want to see Kerry prosecuted, and he told her not to. Joe Biden, this wasn't his only time. In recorded interviews with his ghostwriter in 2017, there were also plenty of memory lapses. Biden struggled to remember again what years he was vice president. I'm starting to chuckle because as I'm talking, I'm like, how much more evidence do you need, people? The guy is just not all with it. Oh, man. So what is that? So the mainstream media is not only telling us don't believe our eyes, they're also lying about it. Look at this picture here. They're trying to sit there and say this is Trump, you know, using his son, Don Jr., to keep his balance, to keep from falling. He's holding on for dear life, per Brian Tyler Cohen. He's an elitist cuck that is an overseer on the Democrat plantation, and his job is to keep us Latinos and blacks on the plantation indoctrinated with lies. And here's one of them right here. This is No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. Here is a photo of Trump having to hold someone's hand to guide him off stage. Picture's worth 1,000 words, right? This guy, Brian Tyler Cohen, man, his poor wife, boy, she hasn't been with a real man since she met him, because only a cuck would sit here and blatantly lie. Now, let me show you what has really happened. Hey, there we go. Let me show you what's really happened here. I got to find the video. You see that? A brief handshake with his son, who he dearly loves. But yet, this is how it was presented. Here is a photo of Trump having to hold someone's hand to guide him off stage. We are indeed living George Orwell's 1984. That's the media and supporters of the media. Now, Brian Tyler Cohen deleted that, and for good reason. He was lying. Oh, man. It drives me up a wall because being born and raised in a third world country as an American citizen, I've seen this propaganda over and over and over with Manuel Noriega y General Torrijos. Panama's two final dictators. So how do you resolve this? Well, if you're in Joe Biden's camp, and I'm on the outside looking in, but being on the outside looking in, I agree with Alex Berenson, who comes up with a great way for the dementia Biden regime to end any questions. Oh my goodness, do I have this picture here? I hope I got this picture. Let me find it. There you go. From Alex Berenson. In reality, Joe Biden could end questions about his age in a week. One, a 2-hour press conference with no limits on questions. Donald Trump did that multiple times as president. Joe Biden, man, they get him out there, they rush him off. They actually force the reporters to write down their questions, and they pick ahead which question he's going to answer. In fact, he's busted himself. Well, according to this, I'm going to take your question next, there, CNN. Have a Trump style rally. And what that means is you have a rally where Trump, he just ad-libs everything. He talks, and ad-libs everything. And finally, releases full medical report and the actual her tape. They've released the her report, but not the recorded tapes. That would sit there and show him as fit as a fiddle, as everybody likes to say, or prove us correct. I think the latter is what would happen. That's a great post by Alex Berenson. And yeah, if he could do that, nobody could question him at all. The problem is they will never do this. And again, Trump has gone on for hours talking to the press when he was POTUS. He stood up for long rallies, ad-libbing. He had his doctor's report. I mean, the guy has done everything to counter the mainstream media, and that pisses him off because everything they want to say and want you to believe about Trump is true about Biden. The proof is always in the actions, not the words. Never forget that. And if you have not read George Orwell's 1984, I would suggest you do. Moving on. Election interference and voter fraud. Voter fraud is here. This segment is going to be nothing but example after example after example. When I first got into business with Big John and 2020 happened, I didn't even talk about it because, again, born and raised in Panama, two dictators. I was a protected class being an American citizen, but I watched it all. And then as a young adult going back and seeing it all over again. Those who are in power count the votes. And they also have control of the courts, the system. And we saw all of that. Then people say, what about the Dominion lawsuit? That was settled out of court. And part of the game plan there was to get rid of Tucker. I find it funny with Democrats, Republicans, and in this case, I'll say libertarians because I work with one. They all want to believe conspiracy theories when it's attacking them. But then they come to the conclusion, that shit don't happen in the United States, man. What are you talking about? When it comes to those, for example, with TDS, with Trump. But as I told Big John, I said, look, the truth will eventually come out, just like it did with the jab. Too many people lied. No, William, they never said that you wouldn't catch COVID if you took the vaccine. Yeah, they did. There were so many lies. No, William, people were free to talk about the counter, the vaccine. No, they weren't. They were barred from social media platform. The mainstream media refused to have them on as guests. It was a one road trip to hell. People are dying now from the jab. That's beyond dispute. It's funny. They sit there want to play this little science point, that little science point, but then they won't debate somebody who actually can counter their points. I mean, there are people I know who says, no, they can't debate. No, they can't debate because they're so worried that my side, who has the actual proof, data, and the actual science, questioning every aspect of the jab, will defeat those who say the jab works. They're afraid that their side can't win. And my take is simple. If your side has the truth and you're so confident, then why are you trying to stifle debate? That's so undemocratic. That's so anti-Republican. That's so against libertarianism. But yet they do. You'd be shocked. And I'm not pointing one person out because I know somebody hears this are going to think that. No, that's one of many conversations I've had. Look, my whole family has literally taken the jab. You know, my God bless my sister. I hope nothing happens to her, but she dropped down, had to go to the hospital, has heart issues now. Didn't have them before. She took the jab. So I'm dealing with a family of 5-6 booster people. You know, so they look at me, and if looks could kill, my own family would sit there and wish me to death when I talk like this. You know, so I'm talking about the jab, but voter fraud's the same way. People want to ignore the telltale signs. And one of the biggest signs is actual people getting arrested for it. It's like, my goodness, you know, here's a picture I'm going to show you. Come on, man. I'm trying to get to my controls here. Here we go. Okay, so four Connecticut Dems are charged after video showed them stuffing a ballot box and triggering a new mayoral election. You can't make this stuff up, people, despite the fact people with TDS, Democrats, rhinos, never Trumpers, that's actually what they say. It's all made up, William. It's all made up, William. Show me the proof. And then when you show them the proof, they don't want to believe it. Let me tell you about a gentleman named Ruben Barales. He was a Bush Republican, super nice guy. I truly like him. But he was clueless when it came to voter fraud. We were at the convention. I want to say it's 2820. It was after 2020. And he had this incredulous look at the fact that I believe there was voter fraud. He goes, "What proof do you have?" I said, "First of all, stop." I said, "Ruben, data is my business, it's my job. And statistically speaking, this is not a sum zero game. There is voter fraud out there. That's a statistical truth. How much? We don't know. There has really been no major study to do it, but there have been cases. People forget in the 2000 election, for the betterment of the country, George W. Bush did not pursue this. In Minnesota, they found Democrats bribing the homeless. I think it was liquor and cigarettes for ballots, for votes. They found it also in Arizona. Now, those are just simple forms of voter fraud, but it's voter fraud. In a tight election like Florida became, those votes are critical. So when people sit there and say, "Well, William, I don't believe it," then they're lying. They're just flat out lying, especially if they've been in politics. You know, you can't deny the truth, but they do. So in this case, four Connecticut Democrat operatives have been charged with election-related offenses, including unlawful possession of absentee ballots. That's why I'm against absentee voting and ballot harvesting. The only reason those have been implemented is to generate and create voter fraud. That's it. It's not made to make people's lives easier. If it were, we wouldn't have the lotto, cigarettes, and booze proliferated every payday through marketing to the poor. It does nothing for them, but it's a conditioning. That's where the poor spend a lot of their money. Absentee ballots but they'll tell you, well, you know, the poor have an opportunity to get out of the ghetto. You know, you can't keep a man down. You know, if he wants a drink, let him have a drink. My God, William, what's wrong if a man wants to have a smoke? None of those are any good. But it's a way to keep poor people doing other things, using their time, their money for everything but paying attention to what's happening to them politically. Absentee ballots, they tell us, "Oh, it's there to help you." You know, the guy has to work a shift, doesn't have time to go vote, may want to do the absentee ballots. They don't tell you that your job has to give you the right to go down the vote. You know, so it's just another way for them to cheat. Now, one of the women out of these four had already been publicly scrutinized over ballot stuffing. So this dealt with two campaign workers, the Bridgeport City Council member Alfredo Castillo, Democratic Town Committee Vice Chair Wanda Getter Pataki. Getter Pataki was accused of failing to sign as an assister on an absentee ballot application she had filled out on behalf of a prospective voter. But wait, it just was just an accident. Really? That's what everybody says 2,000 ballots later. 200 ballots later in a race where 190 votes separate, and those 200 votes tend to all go one side. See, that's the other thing. All these votes that have been found since the 2000s in the parking lot, in the car trunk, they're about 98% Democrat, 2% Republican. And the only reason they're 2% is they want to throw in a couple of Republican votes to go, see, it's not all Democrats. You know, 3 of the 4 defendants were also charged with witness tampering. Now, this relates to charges in 2019 from the Democratic primary for mayor in Bridgeport, Connecticut. The incumbent mayor, backed by the town committees, they defeated Senator Marilyn Moore by just 270 votes. So you're telling me that ballot stuffing could not have affected that race? You're damn right it could have. Prosecutors also said that defendants misled voters about eligibility requirements for absentee ballots, told people which candidates to vote for, were improperly present when ballots were filled out, violated rules for handling both absentee ballot applications and the ballots themselves. Getter Pataki was a key player in another episode involving absentee ballots that upended the 2023 mayoral contest. So between 2019 and 2023, do you really think that those people were silent during the 2020 race? No. The investigation uncovered 10 other people who were not listed in the state voter registry. 2 others who were not Democrats but requested, received, and submitted absentee votes for Democratic races. 2 felons on parole and ineligible to vote who submitted ballots accepted by city official. Voters who said they received absentee ballots, they did not request. Man. It's just the corruption. Then there's this other one. A former Lodi City Council member, Shakir Khan, pleads no contest to election fraud and illegal gambling in 2020. Again, I'm telling you, people, this voter fraud is everywhere. It is everywhere. Former Lodi City Council member Shakir Khan pleaded no contest to 77 felony and misdemeanor charges in 3 cases in San Joaquin County. That's here in California, actually. The charges include 41 counts tied to illegal gambling, money laundering, tax evasion, and grand theft. Also, 22 counts involving false claims filed against EDD related to COVID-19. This was just a bad dude. The final 14 counts were charges of election fraud concerning the 2020 election. So if voter fraud is happening at this level, what makes you not think it can't happen at the national level, whether it's a congressional, Senate, or a presidential race? Khan is charged with having more than 20 people registered to vote at his home address in 2020. I do know in California, it's a major problem. They don't want to clean out the voter rolls, even though the courts have told them to. In LA County, for example. But they find dozens and dozens of people registered to one address. You would think a system in the computer would flag that, but if it does, they ignored it. Nearly 50 people registered to vote using his personal email address and phone number. CBS 13 confronted Khan directly about the election fraud allegations in March 2023. And much like the National Democratic Party, there's no legitimacy to the charges filed against you, asked reporter Ashley Sharp. Absolutely no. And that is going to be dealt with in the court of law, Khan responded. Khan pleaded guilty. Khan will serve a 2-year sentence at the San Joaquin County Jail. All right. Project Veritas video. I want to show you this Project Veritas video. It's a little old. It's probably not the best quality, but I want to show you anyway. Let me get to it.
Keith here in downtown Minneapolis at the scene of the crime. The person you're about to meet, Liban Mohammed, aka King Liban 1, boasts about the hundreds of absentee ballots in his car.
Numbers don't lie. Wajida gaarigayga waa buuxaa. Waxaas waa absent ballot salka yaala. Soo ma jeedin. Fiiri, waxaas oo dhan soo ma jeedin. Waa buuxaa gaarigayga. Waa buuxa yaala. Waxaas kullu waa Jamal Usman way. Fiiri. 300 clear maanta soo dhacday oo Jamal Usman. Yeah.
There was video. You can see the video. There was a video out and about that he has the ballots in his car.
Right.
And talking about the only way you can win is with money. I was looking at them and they were not filled. They were blank.
Who is the one filling out the absentee ballots? People who work with, like Ilhan Omar. Where do they pay the money? The minute we sign the thing, the election, that's where you can pay.
Money is everything. Money is the key in this world. If you ain't got money, you should not be here, period.
Marka odayaasha waa loo codsadaa. Waana laga qaadaa.
At the end of this street,
Yes.
there's 3 towers called one house.
Okay.
And it's all seniors, and they took every ballot.
Every ballot. They just take
Every
them from
single
them.
ballot. They knock on the door and say, your ballots, come give it to me, give it to me.
They don't even pay them for it. They just take them.
No. And the ones that didn't vote on ballots, the young people and the women and stuff, they were paying cash. They were getting bags of money the last time we here to drive people. So there's a vested interest, but we are victims of the system. They don't give a shit about any Somali.
2 in the morning, still hustling.
Who is the one filling out the absentee ballots? People who work.
All right. Now they try to tie this Ilhan Omar was a different candidate. What they were saying it was people who like those who work for her. So I am 57 years old. God, I look good, don't I, for 57? I love joking about that because I was blessed with good genes. The reason I say that, back in the late 80s, I remember talking politics. I was freshman class president, always been a political junkie. And I remember one of the first stories I was told in the battle from Democrats and Republicans is Democrats would go to the senior centers and they would register everybody. And then we would find in the trash cans those who registered to vote Republican. They would only process and take down the ones who registered to vote Democrat. So this has been going on forever. And again, this is why I don't like the absentee ballot system, the mail-in system, because the only reason they wanted it is it's ripe for corruption. This is not a standalone tale. There's hundreds of tales like this in California alone, much less across the country. You know, as you saw, the video shows the ballot broker bragging about keeping hundreds of absentee ballots, telling people which candidates to vote for and filling out those ballots. Again, this is why they want absentee ballots, so they can, in conjunction with ballot harvesting. And that's why Republicans, when they talk about this, I'm against it too. I'm like, don't bring that crap to me. Because I don't vote straight R. I only vote conservatives. There have been actual campaigns or cycles. I vote for a third of the Republicans. I leave the other 2/3 blank because I'm like, you're nothing but a corrupt party, Republican. You don't care about the people. I also learned that firsthand serving as a politician at the local level for my community. Wow. You know, I didn't lose my train of thought. It's just more like it's more frustration in my mind right now. It's like there's so many spots I can go. Just at the end of the day, this video should have created controversy, should have created a frenzy amongst the mainstream media, but it didn't. Why? Because they know this happens. And they are ideologically leftist. The data proves it. The registrations of party proves it. They've come out pretty much and said it. I mean, even now, they help create the Russia hoax. You know, they help promulgate Obama's life. You like your doctor, you keep your doctor. They've done everything. They're just blatantly leftist now, and we all know it. That's why they are in such panic mode right now. You know, and again, we're told that democracy will be improved if we allow ballots to be handled outside the scrutiny of election officials. and that there is almost no voter fraud. So what's there to worry about? You just saw a tape, and that story is repeated hundreds of thousands of times across the country. Absentee ballots remain the largest source of potential voter fraud, concluded the Bipartisan Commission on Federal Election Reform, co-chaired by former President Jimmy Carter. I talk about that a lot. You know, people get shocked because that was decades ago. And then Jimmy Carter came out in 2020 and said, "Oh, it's a very good, fair election. I don't see anything compromised." Yet, by his own words, a few generations ago, he said he would have said, "Yes, this is a compromised election." But because he's a bot-for Democrat cuck, he went along with it. I have no respect for him. William, he's done this. No, he's done everything to help destroy these United States of America. He's a useless excuse for a human being. And no, I have no love for him, because when his wisdom was truly needed, he caved in and fell to the mob and said the 2020 elections were sound. Allowing these ballots increases the risk of fraud of contested elections. Quote, increases the risk of fraud and of contested elections. That is from the Bipartisan Commission on Federal Election Reform, once again co-chaired by former useless excuse of a president, Jimmy Carter. Veritas has a notable voter fraud exposure history. They found it was easy to vote using the name of a dead person in New Hampshire. They filmed a Greenpeace activist in Colorado boasting about how he could find ballots in trash cans that could be fraudulently mailed in. In North Carolina, political operatives encourage Veritas representatives to vote, even if they weren't citizens. I've heard that out here too. You know, it's not vote. I don't care if you're illegal, just go vote. So, you know, because some of them may be able to vote. There's no ID needed. And if somebody looks at it at the registrar's office and it's a compromised registrar's office like it was in Broward County, Florida, that's a fact, not conjecture. Those illegal votes will be counted. In 2016, Veritas cameras caught Alan Shulkin, Manhattan's Democratic Election Commissioner, saying, quote, "It's absurd. There is a lot of fraud, not just voter fraud, all kinds of fraud. They put people in a bus and go from poll site to poll site," unquote. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio promptly fired Shulkin for his truthfulness. He didn't want anybody to know about voter fraud, so he fired him. Next case, Craig Calloway being charged in Atlantic City voter fraud. Craig Calloway, a former Atlantic City political leader, was arrested procuring, casting, and tabulating fraudulent mail-in ballots during the 2022 general election. He's done this for multiple cycles that came out. Calloway, 64, was charged with one count of depriving, defrauding, and attempting to deprive and defraud the residents of the state of New Jersey of a fair and impartially conducted election process by the fraudulent procurement, casting, and tabulation of ballots. In other words, they charged him with voter fraud by casting fraudulent ballots, meaning he filled them out or other people filled them out, or he bought the votes off people. About a month before the November 8, 2022 general election, Calloway and others working under his direction, and he wasn't doing this alone, approached numerous individuals in Atlantic City, promised to pay them $30 to $50 to act as a purported authorized messengers for voters who supposedly wish to vote by mail. Again, absentee ballot. It's just the only thing it's good for is voter fraud. These individuals provided the office with proof of identification and signed the applications in the authorized messenger portion before handing those signed applications to office personnel. The purported messengers waited while office personnel processed the applications, and if the applications were approved, then mail-in ballots were provided for the voters listed on the applications. However, here's the kicker. After receiving mail-in ballots, these purported messengers left the county clerk's office and instead handed the ballots to Callaway and his subordinates who filled them out. These ballots were ultimately cast in the names of people who have confirmed they did not vote in the 2022 election, and that they did not authorize Callaway nor his subordinates or anyone else to cast ballots for them. And he faces up to 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. Look, I'm sorry. You're busted with voter fraud. That's the integrity of our whole system and what it's built on in selecting our political leaders. To me, it should have been a $250 million fine and 50 years in prison, no parole, and 25 years of those chain gang. And he's been caught on video over and over bragging about this. Now, we all know Wisconsin is a battleground state. Former Milwaukee election official found guilty of obtaining fake absentee ballots. She was convicted of misconduct in office and fraud for requesting 3 military absentee ballots using fake names and social security numbers. She sent them to a Republican state senator who, and then she claims she's a whistleblower. The story becomes convoluted. She was given a suspended sentence. But here's the important part. Here's the important part. She was able to request 3 military absentee ballots. She used fake names and social security numbers and got them. So don't tell me there is not voter fraud in Wisconsin. That alone proves there is. There was another one from a Racine man who requested and received absentee ballots in the names of legislators, and local officials. There's no difference than what I just said about Project Veritas in New Hampshire, receiving an absentee ballot in the name of an elected official. Milwaukee is home to the largest number of Democrats in Wisconsin and has been a target of accusations with actual evidence from the Trump camp that was poo-pooed by the media, poo-pooed by the courts, and poo-pooed by anybody. Nobody wanted to touch the 2020 voter fraud. You're talking about telling the world, yes, the United States of America, who goes around telling people how to properly vote, how to have clean elections. We have just determined they are guilty of a tainted election. They weren't going to do that. That's why. See, I wasn't able to tell that to my partner because he didn't want to listen to it. He just wanted to look at the surface because that's what his TDS was pushing. And he's not alone. I don't fault him. There are millions of others. What I do fault in them is the hypocrisy of looking at it one way for one person, but then looking at it at a different way, meaning you let your personal feelings get us play a part in your decision making. That's what I pride myself on not being. That's why I meet these libertarians and I like them. They think, oh, you're just a libertarian. You don't know it. I'm like, no, I am not a libertarian. Far from it. I loathe your utopian lies. Because to be a libertarian, you have to be as perfect as Jesus was, as perfect as Adam and Eve were before the Apple incident. It's just not doable. But I look at everything openly. That's my bane. That has cost me financially. That has cost me professionally. And to this day, it still costs me because I have been canceled in the fantasy sports industry. I can never go work for these companies who told me after I sold my business, give us a call. Call them now. They'll never return my call. So, yes, I get very angry at people who have TDS, at people who only look at things one way. But then when it comes to looking at it from a perspective that they're like, oh, I don't want this to happen to my side. Then all of a sudden they open their eyes. Oh, look, this is happening. That is happening. The RNC declares victory in judge ruling on Michigan Secretary of State's signature verification rule. So in a nutshell, what happened here is the Secretary of State for Michigan sent out these guidelines. And in essence, they were very loosely interpreting the signatures on Once again, absentee ballots. Her guidelines pretty much said you will accept every ballot regardless of signature, is pretty much what the guidelines were stating. And the judge, the ruling was a response to a lawsuit by the RNC, the Republican National Committee, but the judge ruled against the initial presumption of validity. That's what the Secretary of State was saying. Every ballot is going to be judged valid. And instead of questioning that, the Secretary of State was patch her on through. So the judge did allow the guidance manual to keep the explanations of why signatures may appear different because of age or quickly writing. But there's a difference between a slight twist, a slight discrepancy with the signature versus a flat out different signature. And the ruling comes again after the GOP sued, and it was struck down in court in 2021. Then they came out with a new guidance and they sued again, and it's been struck down again. This is how they're going to try to cheat. People forget the Pennsylvania legislature created opened the door for voter fraud through absentee ballots, and that went against their state constitution. And even the Supreme Court did not want to hear it. What I just said is fact. Why the Supreme Court refused to hear it is easy. They didn't want to be seen as having to decide who was going to be president. That's not fact. That's my conjecture. But pretty much every expert will agree to that, because who wants to have a target on their back when it's not necessary? So the bottom line with this Michigan Harlaw, she's trying to give legal cover to accept signatures that bear no resemblance to what's on file. So I'm going to end this with Andy Biggs questioning the Maricopa officials about the deletion of 2020 election data video. Technically, they had every right to delete it. They deleted it after the subpoena asking them not to delete specific types of data. Well, this wasn't outlined in the subpoena. So somebody said, whoa, before they find out about that, we got to delete it. That's what happened. You can say whatever the hell else you want, but that's what happened. And how was this not major news at the time from the mainstream media? Because they were ideologically compromised. They did not want President Trump. This was the first election. I'm 57. Since 1976, I remember every election cycle. What's that? 10, 12 elections for president? I can't remember. But the point is this is the first time you went to bed with a president, an incumbent, leading by this much, and then you wake up in the morning and all of a sudden it's flipped. And we still don't have a proper answer as to why the pipe burst in Atlanta and Georgia. You know, nobody has answered the statistical impossibility of how Mitt Romney did not get one vote in various Philadelphia districts. It's a statistical impossibility, you know. So let me leave this topic with this Andy Biggs video here. It's fascinating. Listen to it. Listen.
Thank you, Mr. Norm. Appreciate that very much. So I'm going to direct a few of these questions. I'm going to ask the Arizona folks here these questions. So I'll start with Mr. Bennett, and then we'll try to work on down so everybody can get there. Is it standard practice to delete files off a server after an election, Mr. Bennett?
I hope not.
So, Mr. Gates, will you agree with that?
I would say that it is appropriate to maintain files, and that's exactly what we did. We deleted the deleted files that have been discussed. They were archived.
Okay, the deleted files that were archived, they were archived files. So technically, they had every right to delete them. There had been and they talk about, well, we got to save space. But what they don't tell you, and you're going to hear later, is there's other elections, previous elections, where they didn't have to delete those archived files. The deletion came after the subpoena. Don't give me this crap. It's coincidence. It was not coincidence, and we all know it.
So you admit that you guys did delete, Maricopa County did delete files off the server after the election?
That are archived.
Yeah, and so when you released these servers and this information to the auditors to begin with, They didn't have access to those archived files at first. Is that fair to say?
They did not subpoena those. That's correct.
Okay, so you didn't feel obligated to turn that over then to them?
So in other words, we got to delete these files really quick before we get another subpoena that has them on there. This Vice Chairman Gates, he had no interest in finding out the truth. He was all about the cover-up.
We responded to the subpoena.
Okay. Mr. Bennett, your response to that?
I find it, frankly, laughable to suggest that a county, in response to a subpoena, could say we will delete files from the hard drives and materials that we give to the auditors because we have those files archived on data that we did not give to the auditors when the subpoena said turn over all the records related to the election.
Yes, that's...
This man should be going to jail, the one who's covering this up. See, and again, I didn't say anything originally because I knew this would come out later. But that all the TDSers, all the Never Trumpers, all the rhinos, all the Democrats, it would just be an unstoppable wave. And those who wanted to hear the truth would never be heard early on. Now it's pretty much indisputable there was voter fraud. Exactly how much and what type is still being discovered, including voter fraud through the Dominion machines that they said did not happen, that are just flat out lied. And again, I don't know the specifics of the Dominion trial with Fox, but they settled that out of court. And I think that was more of wanting to get rid of Tucker and to save face than anything else, because the board of Fox is run by Democrats or left-leaning Republicans. The sons of Murdoch are very big-time leftists. Paul Ryan is a never Trumper. He's an elitist. He's a rhino. William, he voted 80% of the time. Yeah, I don't care how many times you vote to name a damn post office box or to vote for a minor conservative. The 20% of issues he voted against conservatism covered 80% of the laws of the land. So Fox is not a conservative outlet, nor were they on the side of Trump. They hated Trump at that point.
The way I read the subpoena was more broadly than the county read it, for sure. So, so your Twitter account mentions that the purging of the 2020 election database in the beginning of February is a standard practice. Can you please confirm for me that that's what you do for all elections? After all elections, that you do that?
I cannot confirm that for you today, but we can certainly get you that answer.
So he lied on Twitter. You see what I'm talking about? That's where all these pro-voter fraud people would go, see, William, look, there's an election official. He wouldn't say that unless it's true, because he could get sued if it's a lie. Well, it was a lie. He said that that's what they do after every election cycle. And here, all of a sudden, ironically under oath, well, I got to go check, blah, 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 blah. He's lying. Or rather, he lied with his tweet. That's what I'm saying. When people try to come to me like this, I'm like, stop. I'm not flipping stupid. I don't play the little technical game. I don't play the back and go, stop. I'm not stupid. Stop lying. And I've come to realize most people don't like the way I talk. So they kind of get intimidated right away, but that's how I am. And I won't stop being that way because I'm tired of the lies.
Congressman.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, can you confirm?
But we can certainly get you.
All elections, after all standard practice. Can you please confirm for me that that's what you do for all
data that we did not give to the auditors when the subpoena said turn over all the records related to the election?
Yes, that's the way I read the subpoena. It was more broadly than the county read it, for sure. So, so your Twitter account mentions that the purging of the 2020 election database in the beginning of February is a standard practice. Can you please confirm for me that that's what you do for all elections? After all elections, that you do that?
I cannot confirm that for you today, but we can certainly get you that answer, Congressman.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, can you confirm that today or not?
I really can't confirm that either today. I just know that because there is limited space on these servers, when you have to run another election, then you have to make room for the additional election data.
So was there additional? Was there still? Well, let me just rephrase this. If that is the standard practice, which is kind of, I don't think you guys are saying that for sure, but the chairman just intimated that that's the case. Can you explain to me why data was still present for prior elections?
Boom. Data was still there from prior elections. They've been busted in a lie.
On the databases in and of itself.
Yeah, I
Look at them. They're looking at each other. Ruh-roh. Like Shaggy and Scooby. Ruh-roh. Toss them a Scooby snack.
again, I don't have an answer to that question, but we'll certainly get you an answer for it, Congressman.
Okay. All right. I would appreciate if you would give me that information.
And I do think that it's important that our recorder has suggested that he will be answering every question in a timely fashion.
That's the same recorder that campaigned that Adrian Fontes was incompetent and called him a criminal, and he was the guy that was running the 2020 election, and you actually hired someone to oversee Mr. Fontes because you guys didn't trust Mr. Fontes as well. Is that the same guy? Is that the same Stephen Richard?
In other words, it's a bad, untrustworthy dude who is going to answer these questions that Biggs and company have.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it that way exactly. But what we did was we did have statutory and boards, as you know, Congressman, boards of supervisors have responsibility for election day operations, and we took that back so that we would have 4 Republicans and 2 Democrats overseeing the 2020 election. We thought that was important.
I'll yield back. Thanks.
The gentleman from California.
I mean, that one exchange alone should have had the media crawling out of the woodwork, wanting to dig in for the truth. Instead, they defended the liars and condemned Andy Biggs for asking those questions. And all those people with TDS were right in line, on their knees, condemning Biggs for asking legit questions while defending those losers. It's incredible. It's damn incredible. We have become a banana republic. And take it from somebody born and raised in Panama who has seen banana republics. So we've got to be on the lookout for voter fraud. I joked to my wife, and I've actually heard a few black conservatives, saying, "Man, you know what? I think this may be so big a landslide. There's not enough fake absentee ballots for them to take this election." I've said the same thing too. And that's what we have to hope for, or we're going to get that 2 a.m. pipe bursting again. So before I close this out, if you can, volunteer to be a poll worker. Don't take crap from anybody. Make sure you know a lawyer too. Because if you stand up for yourself, they're going to threaten you. They're going to say, we're going to arrest you. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. That's what Democrats do. And if they can't do that, then they board up, like in Philadelphia. They start boarding up the election center so you can't see the cheating they're doing. I mean, why would you board it up? Because they don't want you to live in there because you're going to be cheating. All right, let's close this out with the Biden regime opening the country to a potential terrorist attack. Cuban officials tour secure parts of Miami International. Florida lawmakers are now introducing legislation to ban officials from countries designated as state sponsors of terrorism from touring secure areas of U.S. airports. Why would we have our enemies be given tours showing the intricacies, the inside, the non-public areas, the security force, how we protect ourselves at airports? Why would they be doing that to enemies of the state? Florida lawmakers are doing this after Cuban officials were given a tour of secure areas at Miami International, including a security checkpoint and baggage screening areas. The tour took place over 5 hours on May 20th on Cuban Independence Day. Hey, they're our new allies. They're just killing their own people. And the money we send them or give them or work with them in terms of bringing capitalism. The capitalism in Cuba is a one-way street. It goes from us to the Cuban rich into their pockets. The Cuban people are still poor. Local leaders were not notified in advance, and obviously, as I would have as well, expressed outrage. The TSA defended the tour as part of routine visits to ensure safe and secure air travel between the U.S. and Cuba. Just throw those are the dumbest people who get hired at TSA. Yeah, I don't know any TSAers, and if I do, I don't want to know you. Sure, y'all are polite, but y'all are rude, crude, and you're like little children with the power of God. I've seen that happen. Oh, you got to bite your tongue. You got to sit there as they make life miserable, and they know they're making life miserable. You know why? Because they're miserable people defending giving a tour to an enemy of the state. How moronic can you get? Luckily, there's bipartisan support, so at least there's still some realistic looking Democrats there. So what are the ramifications of this? Bad actors could exploit weaknesses in security protocols. No, I'm not saying this is Die Hard 2, but they could exploit our weakness in our protocols. And our government is one of, there are more attacks successfully on our government facilities, computers with hackers than there ever are on civilian ones. Because civilians understand the importance of protecting that data. But civilian government, the military, we know how to protect it. We learned the hard way with the John Walker incident of the 1970s. Had we gone to war with the Russians, there's a good chance they would have easily defeated us because they knew they owned our naval war power. They could have taken us out. There's obviously the potential for cartels to get involved with contraband and drugs, planning attacks, gathering intel for future operations and attacks. Terrorists scoping out potential targets, drug traffickers concealing shipments, hackers looking for vulnerabilities. It's absurd. But that is today's big government. Be careful what you vote for. Be careful when you condemn us conservatives who want limited government. There's a reason we want limited government. In my case, I saw 2 dictators in a different country. I was hauled aside by my family, told to shut the bleep up because while I wouldn't be taken away in the middle of the night, their sons, their daughters, their friends, and their relatives could have. And here we are exposing our airports. I mean, wasn't 9/11 enough of a wake-up call? It's like, my God. My God. And there you have it, my friends. There you have it. Fired Up, episode 26. We talked a little bit about Dementia Joe. He is a dementia-riddled fool, and I don't like him. He's a bad human being. Here's what you don't understand about Joe Biden. He's not a good human being before dementia. Just because he's an old man with dementia doesn't mean you need to feel sad for him. He's a terrible person. And the people who are even worse now are his handlers, Jill Biden, who wants to be first lady so desperately she's willing to let her old man make a fool out of himself. Man, can you get any worse than that? We talked about that. We talked about how they're trying to lie and show Donald Trump in that same vein, and it's not. And we showed you the blatant lie. We talked about voter fraud. We have to prepare for voter fraud. The absentee ballot system is made for one reason, and that is to help cheat on elections. And both sides are going to do it because Republicans now want to do ballot harvesting. They want my ballot. They want to knock on my door and say, William, I'm a fellow Republican here. Give me your mail-in ballot, because that's what I do. I do a mail-in ballot. I hold on to it. I have it right next to me, and I'll take a full day, if not longer, to search out every Republican or Libertarian candidate and to find out who the conservative is, and I'll vote for it. Like I said, there's been times where I've only voted for a Thursday, 20% of the Republicans on there, and I leave the rest blank. But the Republican Party wants my ballot, so they can do what? Cha-ching, Republican, 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 a down ballot Republican vote. No, I can think for myself. They want to take our elections away through ballot harvesting so they can vote straight party ticket. No, sir, no, sir, no, sir. And finally, it seems our government is intent on creating a terrorist event at our airports by allowing enemies of the state. Sure, well, William, it's only Cuba. Well, it starts with Cuba. Who knows where it ends? That's how all this stuff starts. got to wake up. You got to think. You got to think. Before I go, do not forget you can check out this podcast. And please like and share it. I really need you to like and share so we can keep growing. Like and share it. And you can find this podcast as well as our libertarian podcast, our sports shows, as well as our pop culture and entertainment show with anti-woke topics. And I'm proud to say I host that. And that's the Red, White, and Rude. And every week you can find these at grumblingsmedia.com. You can also find these on social media outlets such as YouTube, Rumble, traditional podcast outlets such as Spotify, Pandora, Apple, and Google. So until next time, my friends, thank you for watching. This is William del Pilar. This is Fired Up. Until next time, I bid you adieu.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.